Okay, so I'm going to be teaching a lesson on Psalms 139. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, so you have it up here? All right, and this Sunday school lesson is entitled God's Promised Presence. And when I first got this, I read the chapter and I was like, this is so interesting. I was like, I had been saying a couple of these verses in here over the previous few weeks. I was like, I say God has a sense of humor. So, so this all worked out. And then before I really dug deep I read this chapter, a couple words that I got from it and that are on here, like promise and presence. I wanted to break down those definitions first. And promise, according to the dictionary, is a legal binding that gives the person to whom it is made a right to expect or to claim the performance or forbearance of a specified act. And presence is the fact or condition of being present or the part of a space within one's immediate vicinity. So we're going to read Psalms 139 through 12, and I believe I'll take the first verse, and then you all can take the second, and we'll go on from there, okay? All right. So Psalms 139 and 1, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up to heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there thy hand be with me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Altogether, yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. All right, so I went through this chapter and asked the Lord to break each verse down to me. So for verse 1, it says, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. From that I got, God knows everything about us. He knows everything about me. He knows everything about you. There's nothing about us that he does not know. And also in Matthew chapter 10, verse 30, it even goes to say that he knows how many hairs each one of us have on our head. Every hair is numbered. So he knows us. Like I remember in school, this one girl, she was like, oh, I counted my hairs on my head. I'm thinking to myself, girl, no, you didn't. There's no way. She was like, I sat up all night and counted. I'm like, I don't know nothing, but I don't know. I'm like, okay, I just looked at her. But God, he knows every single number of hairs that we have upon our head. And also in Jeremiah chapter 1, he says, before you were in the womb, he knew you. Even before you were born, before you were in your mother's womb, however may so you got there, he knew you and he knows you now. So verse 2 says, thou knowest my downsitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. He knows your ups and your downs. He knows when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're going through, when you're having a joyous occasion. He knows them all. He knows your thoughts, what you're thinking right now, even if you're not even focused on Sunday school right now. If you're thinking about what you're going to eat after church, he knows. He knows. He knows everything. There's nothing that we can.
I was not thinking about that.
You weren't thinking about that? He knows. He knows what you'll think tomorrow. He knows what you're going to think next year. He knows if there's going to be any type of situation that happens in your life. He knows what you're going to be thinking at those very moments. And we're going to get down to the scripture where it's almost like we can't even fathom, like, he knows what we're thinking, what we're going to think, what we're going to say before it comes off of our tongue. He knows it all. And in Luke chapter 5, it says, Jesus knew what they were thinking, and he asked them, what do you question this in your hearts? I'm going to go to that real quick because it was interesting to really grasp the whole concept of what was going on in Luke chapter 5. And we're going to get through this whole Sunday school before 10:45. So in Luke chapter 5, verse 18 through 22, I'm going to read it for you real quick. He says, and behold, men brought in a bed a man which was taken with a palsy, and they sought means to bring him in and to lay him before him. And when they could not find by what way they might bring him in because of the multitude, they went upon the housetop and let him down through the tiling, which with his couch, into the midst before Jesus. And when he saw their faith, he said unto him, man, thy sins are forgiven thee. And the scribes and the Pharisees began to reason, saying, who is this which speaketh blasphemy? Who can forgive sins but God alone? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, so from what I got from there, they was thinking, and Jesus up there listening to their thoughts. And he answered, said unto them, what reason ye in your hearts? So I know people will ask, oh, what superpower? If you could have any superpower, what would it be? And a lot of people will say, oh, I want to read people's thoughts. Can you imagine? I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, you don't want anybody to know your thoughts.
Right, you don't want people to know your thoughts. You want to know other people's thoughts. It would be, I can imagine it would be chaos in the world if you knew that people could actually hear or read your thoughts. It's crazy to even think about. But Jesus, he can read our thoughts. So God knows our thoughts, everything that you think. He knows everything. Even, I know there's times that, I guess I can speak for myself, when you've gone through situations and you don't know what to say, or you don't even know how to pray, and or it's in your head, but you can't bring it out to words. The Lord knows. He knows, and he understands, even when you can't bring it to, fruition. All right, so we are on verse 3. Verse 3 says, thou compass my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. There's no privacy with God. He knows everything about you. I tell Trey and Isaiah all the time, they'll tell you, they can attest, there's no privacy in my house. There is no, when I say no privacy, baby, I'm going through phones. Let's see, he laughing. Everything there is, because it's not going to get past me. And I'm not God, so imagine God. Like, there's nothing that we can do, say, think, speak that can get past him. There is no privacy with God. He knows your good times, when you're resting. He knows when you're up and about and on the go. And it says he's acquainted with you. Acquainted means personal knowledge of someone. I get from that's intimacy. That's deep for somebody to know you. It's, for example, like before getting married, it's like you think you know someone. Then when you live with them, it's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Because you're together and you're bonding, that intimacy with getting to know one another. But God already knows us. So it's just like, wow, He knows me. He knows just the thought of Him knowing everything about me is absolutely diabolical in my mind. I can't fathom it.
I had an experience. Ooh, how old are you?
42.
Say 45 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Church in New York. Struggles within the congregation at the time. I was ready to leave the church. And I was sitting last seat, last pew on the aisle, right? And it was during the praise. And I was so ready to leave. But during the praise, I saw Jesus walking down the aisle. And he didn't look at anybody. And I said, oh God, I hope he's not coming to me, right? He came right to me. He walked behind me. He pulled my head back and put his head, his eyes. He saw right through me. He knows, you say he knows us from the inside out.
Yes.
He knows everything.
He knows everything.
But to be that open, that was a whole different, a whole different level there. And I ended up staying, But I also, my oldest was autistic, right? And I was having trouble with him, what to do, send him to school, get him, evaluated and all of that stuff. And he told me just keep bringing him to church at that time. But I mean, it's a situation where you can't move because he's looking. You gotta sit still. Don't move, don't say nothing.
Right.
But a glorious feeling too. I know he knows me.
Yes. That was wonderful. All right, we're going to go to verse 4. Okay, hold on. Before we go there, verse 3 was he compassed my path and he knows my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Okay, so verse 4 says, for there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it all together. Man, that's quite something. He knows the word before it rolls off your tongue. Ever almost said something, you're like, ooh, I almost said, he know what you was gonna say. He already know. Even before you start this up, he already knew. Now I know I'm not saying y'all, I'm talking about myself. So been there where I'm like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Like, all right, Lord, forgive me, because I almost said da da da. No, he already knew. He already knew what you was gonna say, because you thought it, and he already know your thoughts. So he already knew. The New Living Translation. For this verse, it says, you know what I will say before I even say it. I think there's more to that. Hold on. The New Living Translation really broke that down. That's verse 4. Okay, so there is no miscommunication with God or with our words. He has clear understanding of them all. But then sometimes we say we know how we say things. There's also a way of how we say things too that can be misinterpreted with people, with our peers, with our family. One example is if you work in the office and or even if you text in all caps, people say you're yelling at them. And it'd be like, I accidentally had caps lock on. I was just trying to get this email out. Oh no, you were yelling at me.
Yeah.
It's a misunderstanding or my response to you. If you ask me something, depending on how I respond back to you, you may take offense to it. Even though I didn't mean any harm by it, I was just responding. In that moment I could have been agitated or anything, but I didn't mean to offend you. But with God, there is no miscommunication. He understands where we're coming from when we think, when we speak. There's no miscommunication with him. Another example as you know, I work at Public Corporate Office in the Risk Management Department. So last week I actually had the opportunity to sit in one of their mock mediation, their trial mediation, to see what they do when public has to go to court. And one of the guys that work in my department, every time I see him in the office, his face is always like, you don't know what he's thinking. So, and when I went to this mediation, it made sense. His job is when he's in mediation and he's sitting on the stand for publics, in between the plaintiff, he's reading the other person. And they're supposed to be reading him, but they say no one knows what he's going to think, not even the mediator. They don't even know what he's going to say or what his response is going to be for the case, because he's going to sit there like this.
Poker face.
Right, a great poker face, and no one can read him. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. We don't know what he's thinking, but God does. He knows. So it's like, even if, in those cases of mediation, you got this plaintiff over here that's going crazy. She's going crazy in the mediation. And he's just sitting there calm, like, you don't know what I'm thinking. But I was just like, well, God knows what you're thinking. So
I would have fun with him.
Yeah,
I would want to say, God knows what you're thinking.
He sits there like this, and he's looking around, and it's like, you don't know if he's going to. Now, remind you, he is the guy that has the money to determine how much money public is going to give you. So you don't even know. He's just sitting there watching you like, okay, you don't even know. So you don't know if he decides if he's going to smile, that man will get more money, or if he's frowning, am I not going to get enough money? You don't know, but God knows. So we're going to move to verse 5, because the time is passing. Verse 5 says, Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. God, that beset a barrier. He puts a barrier, a hedge around you, and he protects you, and he puts his hand on you, his hand of grace, no matter where you are, because once again, he promised to be present. He promised to be there. And one of the first words I even thought of when I read this was, God is omnipresent, meaning present in all places at all times. And omniscient, he's an omniscient God, having infinite awareness, insight, and understanding. So he puts that hedge of protection around you, no matter where you're at, whether you're in the church, whether you decide to, I'm missing out on life. I done grew up in the church and I want to go out and explore the world. He's right there with you. He sees, he knows everything. And verse 6 says, Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain unto it. This is a verse.
Scary verse.
Hey, hush.
That's a scary verse.
That's a scary verse. It says this is too much for my human mind to even comprehend that God is here. He's in China. He's in Japan. He's on Mars. He's he's everywhere at the same time. Like our mind can't even
Process.
yeah, it can't process that that he is everywhere. And as humans, sometimes we put our guard down, like almost forgetting that God is everywhere. So one of the things that I do at work is at all the cameras at Publix, I look at the cameras. I can see what everyone is doing.
Sit down.
And when these people walk in the store, even myself when I walk into the store, I forget that there are cameras all around the store, and I forget that there are people like myself looking at those cameras and the things that you see people do because they let their guard down because they're not aware of all of the cameras that are around. They forget, or the scammers who come and pour the water on the floor and forget that there's cameras there, and they slip and fall and say, I slipped on this water.
Oh.
But there's a camera there, and sometimes that's what we do. We forget that God is here. He sees everything. He sees everything that we do. There's nothing that we can hide from him. He sees and he knows everything. So verse 7 says, whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? You can't hide from God. You can't escape his presence. Even Jonah, he tried to run. God, he was in the belly of the whale too. He was there too. So no matter where you go, he is there. So whenever you try to, hide and, do something, just think about Jonah and how he was down in the belly of the whale and how many depths of water. Only God knows, because what they say, only 5% of the ocean has been discovered or researched. Can you imagine? And God is down there. So no matter where you go, you can't escape his presence. You can never escape his presence. Even if the ones who have backslidden and are, in the crack houses, and they, still have those, I don't know. I'm not sure. No matter where they are, or God is still there, present with them, no matter where they're at. And verse 8 says, if I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Whether I'm alive, whether I'm down in the grave, no matter where I'm at, God is with you. No matter where you're at in life right now, God is with you.
Amen.
He is with you no matter what. Whatever trials or tribulations you are going through or have been through, he's there. No matter in your house, he's right there with you. When you go to the doctor and you get a report, he's there. He's right there with you, no matter what. And at night, when you're crying,
He's there.
he's there.
Amen.
He's right there with you. You're never alone. And sometimes we do go through where we feel alone or forgotten or rejected. And the enemy, he plays with your mind. But all along, he's right there. Even in those seasons where you're praying and you see things that you're praying for yourself happening for other people around you, and you're like, God, you quiet. But he's right there.
We go through dry times sometimes, but,
Right. Those dry seasons,
think the Lord's not there, but he's there, he knows.
he's right there the whole time. He's right there.
Amen.
Verse 9 says, if I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, in verse 10, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. So whether I'm in heaven, in the north, in the grave, in the south, whether I go to the east or the west, I can't escape him. You can't escape God. He's right there, no matter where you go.
Amen.
verse 11. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hide from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to me.
Wow.
So the darkness and the light are both light to him. He can see through it all. So if you guys have ever been on a cruise ship, and if you go out at night, and if you look out on the ocean, it is so black. You don't know whether it's something out there coming for you, pitch black, or if you're been in the country where there is no lights, or if you're driving down 33, and if you turn your lights off, you see nothing. But God, He sees through all of that. Even if you try to go into a dark room, you don't even want to come out of your room because you're going through so much. He sees you. He's there. He sees everything you're going through. You can't escape Him. God, I thank you. You can't escape Him. So the darkness and the light are both alike to Him. And in conclusion, God knows your thoughts. He knows your ups, your downs, every word you speak, every word you think. He knows your heart. He knows your mind. He knows you physically. He knows you spiritually. He knows where you're at. He knows where you're at in Him. He knows when you're trying. He knows when you're ready to give up. He knows everything about you. Everything. He is your protector. He is there to guide you. In Him there is love, there is safety, there is security, there is salvation, and there is refuge.
Yes.